Gotta get that nutmeg grated, and welcome everyone to the Nutmeg Tavern. Come on, crowd in. There's plenty of spots in the back, and well, there's plenty of room, and we've got somebody to serve us today, so that's good. Gotta make sure I got all that going on there. I'm your host, John Townsend, and we're gonna be talking fun 18th century stuff today. And I am joined behind the bar by Mr. Noisy, Ryan.
I have to make my presence known.
There he is. Thank you, Ryan, for joining us. And Aaron is on the other side of the console.
Everything's going great.
Hey,
everyone. Happy Friday. Glad you're here.
He's on the other side of the time vortex making all things technical happen because, well, we don't do that here. Thank goodness. If I had to do that and this, bad things would happen. Boy, somebody must have ordered a large set of drinks back there. So today's topic, we'll be talking more science stuff. But I don't know, do we have any comments before we get to that? Well, let's see. Wednesday's video was
Bark-Covered
House, that chapter 12 reading. That was kind of funny because I was reading in the Bark-Covered House on Monday for trying to catch up. I had actually skipped over a couple of chapters. I was been all the way into chapter 18 reading away, and Caleb got with me. He said, John, you skipped over 12, 13, you need to redo one of those. So I went back and I was reading chapter 12, and it was just so amazingly good. And I came into the office and said, guys, we've got to do more with chapter 12 than just put it on Townsends Plus. Let's take a piece of that and put it on YouTube because it's an incredible chapter for understanding what the interior of a cabin is like. You never get a description that's that long and that intense. So I thought that was just an amazing chapter.
Well, Katie had an early super chat. It says, I'm at work, but just wanted to send some love to the tavern and all of the great people there. Catch you on the replay.
Yeah, thank you.
Aaron, did you see any earlier ones other than
I
that?
saw two other ones.
I don't have access to them.
Okay.
Do you have them still?
Yep.
Okay.
Scroll up and go find them.
Technology.
Okay. You got, what was the one you got?
Katie.
Okay. This is from Red Runner 328. Do you guys carry anything Masonic? And then this is from Dietzlav. Says, I'm going to be working, and a crying emoji because he's going to miss the live stream.
Don't worry.
Weeping emoji.
Most people work and watch the live stream at the same time. So, you can just put an earbud in and have it in your pocket.
That's only the dedicated people.
Right. Masonic, first question. I think the only thing we currently have is the sealing wax set, and one of those is a Masonic emblem. In the past, we've had some trade silver pieces and the other occasional thing. Nothing else comes to the top of my mind, but I'm sure we have had in the past. But currently, the DK715 sealing wax set is what you want to check out.
We haven't answered this one in a while, John. What kind of rifle is that on the wall behind you?
That's a left-hand gun done by Ron Ehlert. He's since passed away, but custom rifle maker, well known from probably the late 90s and 2000s. And it's about an 1820s Tennessee long rifle. So there you go. And made specifically for me because it's left-handed, and so am I. Thank goodness. Something like that.
Do we need to address?
I found out you were left-handed when I was shooting guns.
The Monday's thumbnail.
Monday's thumbnail. A couple comments came in on Monday's thumbnail.
That was a spicy one.
Yeah, it was really funny. We're having a big meeting in the office, and Ryan's at his desk doing a little bit of work, and all the rest of us are around the table, kind of prepping, doing planning work, having these big discussions, and we needed to have the thumbnail done at the same time. So Aaron had shot a couple files over to Ryan's desk, and Ryan, I could see him. He's like over there hunched over his computer, and he's like, wait a minute, wait a minute. Okay, guys, and he backs up and shows us that.
It was funny, and I was hoping that somebody else would say, that's a good idea. Let's try it, because I was in love with how funny it was, and it was fun making you look like you were coming out of the pie.
Yeah, so it was what I looked at it, and it's just like, no, okay, let's do it.
John left the room and let us finish tweaking it.
I'm like, I don't even want to know. Just I'm leaving now.
Yeah, and for those who are not aware, this was Monday's potato apple pie episode.
Yeah, thumbnails
Check it
are incredibly important for videos. As a viewer, you might not think too much about it and about how much thought goes into a thumbnail. Some YouTube channels just sort of always have exactly the same thumbnail over and over again. Sometimes that's a good thing, other times it's not. And if you don't spend time thinking about your thumbnail, you are missing out, because it's how people find your video.
Well, and the problem with a dish like that is traditionally pie pictures do not do really well for us as thumbnails. We've had a few that did really well. But past that, it's like, okay, do you want to see the nice crust and nothing on the inside? Or do you want to see the cut of the pie? Or it's just kind of tricky, but they've made so many pies in the time period that you can't just skip over those recipes, especially when you find an interesting one.
Yeah.
So you got to figure out, okay, how do you have fun with this thumbnail?
Yeah, and sometimes we just have fun because that's what we want to do.
Bruce is in Super Chat, says, cheers to us lefties.
Yeah.
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 I guess you folks are all right.
Hey now. No, maybe it wasn't the best thing being left-handed in the 18th century, but yeah. Before I get to the main topic today, I wanted to do the special feature, which is recipes that we will never do on 18th century cooking. And today's recipe that I will never do, Ryan can do it if he wants to, but I'm not doing this one. This one's out of Powell's book of cookery, and it's called To Pickle Beetroots and Turnips. Sounds good already, doesn't it? Make your pickle of water, salt, vinegar, and some cochineal. Now, this I find strange in the first place, but so we're making a pickle of water, salt, vinegar, and cochineal. Boil the beetroots in it, pare your turnips, boil them, but half as long as the roots. Keep them both in this pickle. So it's beetroots and turnips. The beetroots are boiled in it. You have the turnips, you cook those in it, and then you'll let this salty, vinegary pickle just keep going with this. Now, I don't know why you would double up and have cochineal and beets. This is going to be red when it's done. I thought it was a very interesting one, but boy, there are some recipes I don't want to do because I don't want to have to taste test them. And you can't do a cooking episode without tasting the food, right? And it's just like, no, I'm not going to do that.
There was a comment in here that said, have you guys ever considered a video or a series on gardening and cooking?
We've done just a couple or one episode where we talked about an herb garden. Kind of Ivy and I planted an herb garden. Actually, it was very several years before we built the cabin, but it's actually out there by the cabin. There's thoughts about gardening, right? And we've done an episode or two down at Connor Prairie where we went through the garden having to do with medicinal herbs.
Yeah.
So you can check out that one down at Connor Prairie. I think that's it. The trick with gardening and doing garden-based episodes, if you're going to do very much of it, well, then you have to do a garden. And gardens are not a very easy, quick, hey, done, there's the garden. So it takes a lot of extra effort and time, prep work, and basically weeks and weeks and weeks of work to do an episode. So no, we haven't done that.
I did find a book today that I was going to bring to your attention, though. I think it's from 1830, so it's a little late, but it's called The Kitchen Garden. Have you seen that one? It was interesting because it was kind of planting. It told you how to get the most out of the season, when to plant things, and when to start bringing them to the kitchen to prepare for the table. It was pretty interesting. So
very interesting. There are, I would say, I was going to say lots and lots, but there are a good number of gardening-based books in the time period, in the 18th century time period, even sort of series of books talking about gardening, and some of those, I mean, in that time period, sometimes gardening means landscape gardening, and other times it means, culinary, truck gardening, that sort of thing. So a lot of different kinds of gardens.
So we've got some super chats coming in. Desiree says, is the store tour 360 still up? How do I find it? I don't know if that one's still up.
Wow. I don't know. That's...
I can't
I'll
remember.
have to do some checking on
I was
that one.
watching it not too long ago. Remember that, Aaron? I don't remember if it was listed or not.
It's one of the very few
it should
360
be up.
videos we've got.
Well, I think he means the old tour video.
No, he means the 360 one.
There's a 360.
Yeah.
I don't even.
Yeah,
remember
John
that.
was testing out that 360 camera for a while.
Okay. Maybe it's unlisted.
It might be a Patreon thing. I don't know.
We'll
I
look
can't
into
remember.
it.
We'll check it out.
We'll check it out.
And then Vin sent in a super chat that just says food in all caps with 3 exclamation points. Very exciting.
A lot of people are fans of food,
Yeah.
strangely enough.
Jang says thank you with a poultry pair. So thank you so much for that. And then a lot of people disagree with you on this pickled beets thing. They like them. I think that would be my wife's favorite recipe.
Well, again, like I said, if you want to do it, you can.
Okay.
So last week we sort of dug into the concept of science and being inquisitive about science in the time period. What's going on in North America? Peter Kalm going through and making notes and traveling just for science purposes. Read a little bit, talked a little bit about Benjamin Franklin. And today we're going to talk about camera obscuras, but just as a kind of a segue to that, or kind of a tail end on last week's, there's an interesting section in Schaff's Travels. It's one of the books that we print. And Schaff went through, he was traveling from, say, New York, and he went down into Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, down into, I think, Florida, and to the Bahamas. And he was talking about things. And he says here in this section in South Carolina, he says, since the time when America was settled by Europeans who brought with them arts and sciences, America itself has contributed little to the augmentation and establishment of what it has received. So far, it can boast but one philosopher, one mathematician, and one painter of recognized and emphatic reputation. And there's a note down here that they're talking about Franklin, Rittenhouse, which I'm not familiar with, apparently mathematician, and Peale, obviously for the painter. And when he says philosopher, he really means a scientist-y kind of person, which is Ben Franklin. And then later on, when he's talking specifically about Virginia, South Carolina, he says, in the southern provinces, the sciences have made the slowest advance. In Virginia, indeed, there has been a college for many years at Williamsburg, but the teaching formally went forward very drowsily. In the Carolinas so far, there has been only the most ordinary lower schools and no colleges for instruction of the young, but now the necessity of these is felt, and at this sitting of the Assembly a proposal was made to establish an academy for the higher sciences. Many estimable members supported this scheme with enthusiasm, but they were unable to carry it through. The majority of the votes were on the side of certain other members whose opinion it is that the climate of Carolina is unfavorable to study, and that the best course is to send the young students to academies abroad. And when they say the climate of Carolina, I think they actually mean the actual weather climate of it's like it's too hot to study here. don't bother. don't even bother.
No learning going on here.
Yeah. So
it's damp. The humidity. The pages
Yeah.
stick together
That's
when you
right.
try to turn.
The books
What?
get moldy.
Yeah,
Don't even
geez.
bother. Go to France or something.
Hey,
So-
make sure to hit that like button. Let's get to 1,000 likes, and yeah, really helps the algorithm, all that. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk about camera obscuras. So camera obscura, it's a term that actually means dark chamber. And a camera obscura is like the forerunner of cameras. Now, I personally am a very technology kind of person. I like ancient technology. I like technology from the 18th century, and I enjoy that sort of proto technologies, all as, as they tend to, change through the 19th century, 20th century. And of course, I enjoy new technologies today. That's me. But I love the kind of roots of technology, and camera obscuras are this wonderful root of the cameras that we have today, kinda. Cameras today are so crazy that it's hard to even imagine how they connect to camera obscuras from the time period. But camera obscuras, the term sort of pops up in the 16th, 17th century, but the item itself, the concept is much, much older. And we find illustrations from, say, the 16th and 15th century, and it being talked about much, much earlier than that. But imagine a room, a darkened room, maybe not terribly big, 10-foot square, and in the wall of one room there is a lens, or possibly, if we don't have the technology for a lens, just a tiny, tiny hole in the wall. And if the room is completely dark, on the other wall, there will be an image of what is on the other side of that wall, upside down and kind of projected onto this wall. Let's see the first couple of pictures from the slideshow. So here's an image, 1544, and this person is talking in this circumstance. It's not talking about images per se, but in this one, they also use it for looking at the sun. So this is talking about visualizing an eclipse of the sun, just a partial eclipse. If you look at the sun with your naked eye, of course, you will damage your vision. So how can we do that a different way? And this book shows this room, this darkened room, and then the sun, the image of the sun over there with a funny face on it. I think it's great. It's even showing that you can see how there's an aura that's greater on the top. It's kind of trying to visualize that eclipse. The light from the sun goes through the pinhole in this wall, and then the image is projected on the other wall upside down. And it's the way that we can look at the sun without looking at the sun. So this is the concept of a camera obscura. So what I found interesting, and the reason why I picked this out is not for its use in astronomy per se, but how it gets used in the arts and sciences, or actually in the arts. Would people start to, use this to create paintings? So you can come back to me, Aaron. You don't have to stay over there.
Okay.
Yeah, for now. We'll go back to that later. But so if we can visualize this, we can project a 3D large image, a landscape onto the wall of something, then we could put paper on that wall and we could be the sensor in the camera. Today, of course, we have digital cameras and you have these crazy sensors that are looking at it. In the olden days, like when I started doing photography, of course, we used film. If we had a piece of plain paper on that wall of our room, the image gets projected through it and we could sketch. Without being a decent artist at all, we can draw over the lines of that and create, create an artist or a very photorealistic image of what's going on. And the question is did they do that a lot or not? Was this a thing that was happening? And can we find art that's like that? One of the there was a documentary thing here in the past, and there have been books about Vermeer, who was this just amazing artist in the 17th century, I think. Or is he slightly earlier? Anyway, I think he's 17th century. And his images are just so realistic and so pop right out of they're not artistic really. They're just perfect in especially how everything is laid out. So one of the things that artists don't do very well, at least crummy artists like me, is get perspective right and get all the lines right in the image. But if we use a tool like that, we can get all the perspective lines exactly like they would be, which is very, very difficult to do. So there's a lot of conjecture that Vermeer was using some optical tools to do his art and get all those lines just right and get the perspective and even the other little optical tricks to kind of show up in his imagery. So let's go through a couple more of those images that I've got so we can see what we've got for Camera Obscura. So this is, we actually looked at this last week in a larger image. This is a piece out of Diderot's, and this top corner image is kind of sort of showing off what's going on with a Camera Obscura. There's the soldier out here posing, and then we have our darkened room, our darkened chamber, and then his image is being projected on the far wall. Other similar things are being used in the time period. We have them shown here. Figure 17 is a dark lantern or a magic lantern, which has a lens, and we can project images sort of the reverse, right? So we can use transparencies or like a opaque projector. We can project images backwards out of our Camera Obscura if we want. And there are also tools like figure 18, which is probably showing how we can project those images and possibly even reverse them so that we can do our artwork, but not upside down. And then we also have some other figures here showing the, sort of the mathematical things going on here with the optics. One of the oddest things that I read about was the idea of, what if we want to see how this Camera Obscura works in a smaller way, and how can we test that with the eye? So Leonardo da Vinci was really interested in the eye and how it works, and someone later on talked about using either a dead man's eyeball or an eyeball from an ox, and they would scrape away the backside of the eye so that the retina was kind of showing the tissue of that, and then they could look through this eye and see the image projected on the inside of the eyeball, which is just weird and disgusting and kind of interesting all at the same time. Go ahead with the next image.
You ain't kidding on that.
Yeah, it's like, well, that's pretty disgusting, John. This is a 19th century image of a Camera Obscura being used for art, and the artist here has their own like little tripod, and this camera obscura is one sort of like that second image, or actually I think it was third image in that Diderot's, where the lens is at the very top of his chamber, or in this case his curtained off area. There's a mirror in there, and it sends the image straight down onto his work surface.
That's interesting.
And then he can draw with that. So that's I mean, you can see it's sort of like he's carrying along his camera with him, but there's no film. He's doing the job of being the film in his camera. Here is a type of probably a 19th century camera obscura in a museum, and it's got the lens in the front, and you would focus that there's a little brass knob at the top of that, and that little square box that holds the lens, you could move that in and out to get a sort of a focusing effect. If you use a lens, you have to have a means of focusing. If you're using that pinhole, it doesn't send nearly as much light into our chamber, but everything is in focus. It's this sort of infinity iris, or f-stop on our camera. It's like f64. Everything is in focus. So here this has just a standard open lens doing the same effect, and so we have to have a way to focus things in and out. Here is an 18th century image of a camera obscura. I don't know if he used a camera obscura to make the image of a camera obscura, but we have these people looking in and visualizing this. And some of these techniques were used for visual toys or visual effects of the time period. So they would, people would have these little like fair shows, and they would have this sort of tool that you could look in and see different scenes, or there was that sort of trick where they would send people into a tent and then they would see a scene projected on the tent, but it was actually live action outside of the tent. Very, very fun, strange ways of using these science tricks to entertain people. But
so on this one in particular, that looks like much more than a pinhole.
Yes, this one again has the lens going on. You can use a lens or a pinhole, and in this case, more than likely, the lens there is in sort of inserted in the end of a brass tube, and that would slide in and out of that to focus it if you need to. Or possibly what's going on here is that you would look through the lens and you would see an image on the inside. So it's hard to say exactly what they've got in our hands here, whether it's something like a visual toy or it's a camera obscura. I don't know. Now, this is the image that actually drove this entire piece of work, and this image was done with a camera obscura. So this is from the 1760s, and this person was studying the concept of casting and boring cannons, and he used a camera obscura to create this image. So
that's incredible.
Check out all that perspective that you have to get just right. All those beams running across. Everything's got to lay out just right.
The brick and then the shadow across the brick. It's just incredible.
Yes, the brick, the light beams coming in. Then we have the floorboards and all the things go, all these lines. We can even look through the windows and see the roof beyond. All this is as close as you're going to get to a photograph taken.
Well, another thing that's interesting about this, I know it's not about what we're talking about, but you do see these men indoors working, and they are wearing their long coats the whole time.
They are wearing their long coats.
Really interesting, because a lot of people ask that question.
Right, are hardworking people in longer working clothes, and they're wearing hats. Now, if you're posing for a photograph,
right,
you may not be in your
You want to look your best.
Right. You may like, oh, wait a minute. Well, let me put on my hat. Let me put on my coat here. But I don't think so. And we don't know exactly the time of year. It doesn't look wintry outside necessarily. We don't see a lot of the outside. We don't know how hot it is.
And people are also asking about the last one and this one, if you know who painted them.
The last one I don't have off the top of my head. And this gentleman is a Dutch artist. And now I feel like a dummy because I don't.
Oh, sorry I asked you. I didn't mean to make you feel that way.
I don't have. Why did you do that
Well, it's
to
their
me?
fault, really.
Yeah.
I'm just the messenger.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, no, I don't have it off the top of my head, but I'll find it for you. We'll tell you next week.
Let me take this opportunity to do a little bit of catch up here.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so Duong, I think it's Duong, sent in a super chat. I just wanted to give this channel something. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
MD Smith 702 sent in a super chat without any comments. Speaking of style, Tony, have you seen the YouTube channel Early America? It has videos, shooting period, living 1820s or so. They might be good to do a collaboration with.
I have not seen
I'll
that.
mark that down and look into that. Flash Thompson spends in the donation without a comment. Akeem7, I remember my first encounter with a camera Obscura as a teenager. I've been fascinated ever since. Thanks for talking about this on your stream. P.S. Please try the pickled beets. It's actually very good. Denise Maloney Piran, have a great weekend, John, Ryan, and Aaron. I can't stay, but we'll watch the rest later.
Yeah.
It's always good to have you here, Denise. Thank you very much for that.
Yes.
Some comments that have come in on the comments side, not super chat. Just lost it. Okay. You should look up a program called Connections and Connections 2. Both trace technology from the earliest times to the 20th century. Another one says, whatever happened to Caleb? Do not see him anymore. Caleb's still here.
Yeah.
He's cutting and shooting a lot of the videos that you're watching
Working.
now. How were telescopes and binoculars made in the time period?
Well, they're going to be really similar kind of tools. You grind a couple lenses and you put them in the, a lot of times like telescopes, even, shipboard telescopes, the bigger, longer tubes are wooden. Sometimes you'll have, octagonal wooden tubes, and then, the final, the eyepiece is in a small brass tube that slides in and out of that. So binoculars, you don't see much of that sort of thing happening. You see opera glasses, but they're a much simpler mechanism than sort of the prism binocular. That's really not happening yet in the 18th century. But telescopes, that's, a much older technology, so they're being used a lot. There's even like some fun, interesting telescope technologies that start happening, especially by the time we get to the 19th century. Come-up glasses where you'll have a split image in your telescope and you can set it, and then it will tell you sort of like a range finding technique whether or not you're getting closer or farther away from an object, which uses that. We ended up using that same technology for rangefinder cameras. So there were cameras in the 20th century where you would focus it and you would have a split image. Actually, this camera here has a split image focusing device here on the side. So you'd look in one side, look in this little hole in the back side. You would line up the split image, so you'd see two of something. When it lined up, you knew you were in focus, you could take your picture. So it's sort of that exact same technology, but in a telescope version, so that you would use that, especially at sea. Am I getting closer to that? Am I catching up to that person, or are they getting farther away? So there's some great fun technology like that.
I'd like to say welcome real quick to our 2 new YouTube members. Aaron, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the YouTube membership, there is a join button right beneath the, or right beside the like and dislike button. There's
a dislike button?
Yeah, well, yeah. Don't click that one. It's just a way to support us every month. You get access to emojis. You get a badge by your name. I'm seeing a lot of these gold nutmeg badges, which is for being with us for a year. And it's just a fun way to support us.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
And speaking of that, John, do you want to go through?
Right.
Okay.
While we're there, talking about other ways to support us. So we have Patreon folks that I like to talk about. Patreon's one of those places where people can just sign up to do sort of like a monthly little, $2, $5, whatever. The brand new Patreon people this week, John Connor, Caleb, Amanda Pendred. Is it Amanda? I don't even. Whoever wrote this, which was me, should do a better job. And Alex Ireland. Also, it reminds me of the Townsends Plus. So we've got brand new people in on Townsends Plus because of Wednesday's video where I talked about reading more of the Bark Covered House. So brand new Townsends Plus people: Brian P, James Q, Jeff H. Hjordis, hopefully I got that one right. David B, David I, and Michael P. And there's even some folks help us out on PayPal. So special thanks to Jeremy Skidmore. He does that quite often. Christopher Ford, Alexander Jansen or Janssen. Wow. All those folks
Thank you so much.
help us do what we do, and it is a tremendous service because it takes a lot of people and a lot of moving parts to make our channel happen.
So it looks like the family picture with the camera obscura was by Charles Amédée Philippe Canlou.
There we go.
1719 through 1775. You guys can look that up. Mm-hmm. All right, that catches us up. Wait, no, it doesn't.
Thank you.
Somebody lied.
Much.
I lied.
Yeah,
That's cool.
You can pop back to those pictures. I think there's one more after the really cool boring of the Canon picture, and there's even more to talk about. Maybe that.
Did Ryan have one more thing?
Oh, did you have more?
Oh, it's okay. Mike Circool says, John, your desk looks incredibly spiffy and orderly today. Kudos to the barkeep for keeping the tavern spiffy.
I just scraped it all off. Don't worry. It's all down here.
I cleaned. It took me hours to clean that table.
Here's a picture.
Never. This, again, is a piece of artwork using, again, you don't see very many where they say, yes, that this is what I did with it. But obviously, you can see that this is, again, using that camera obscura technique. So they talk about it being used. They'll talk about the camera obscura and they'll say, oh, you can use this or that, but nobody's willing to admit, yes, I used it for my art.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
Next.
No, I think that's the end of it.
Yep.
I think there you go. That's the end of it. So, yeah, it's hilarious that this technology, is being used for art. It's being used for scientific observation. It's being used for entertainment. For hundreds of years, we get to the 19th century and they develop light-sensitive chemicals that they can put on paper. And all of a sudden, it's like, hey, we can use this inside of our camera obscura. And it turns into, starts to turn into the camera that we know of today. Now, what's hilarious, okay, so it starts off as a room that's 8 feet across, or bigger, that we have to project these images. And we manage to shrink that down and down and down. And then it's down into this little box like the one shown, probably, this big, and has a little, 45-degree angle mirror at the top and a lens. And then we can kind of do art inside of that. And there are some smaller and smaller versions of that as we go through. And we don't know, I'm not sure how big the original, that first camera where he puts a sensitized paper in it. Again, it's probably bread boxed sized. We get into, much later on, and they developed like 35 millimeter cameras. But when we go to digital cameras, we're just taking that same box and we're putting some electronic sensor in the back of it. And what happens when we shrink that down and the box that is this camera Obscura is this tiny little, 3 millimeters across. That's the cell phone in your pocket. It's got a camera and the lens is itsy bitsy and the little black box is even smaller and the sensor is tiny, 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 and yet it does exactly the same job. It's like taking something that was 10 feet across and making it small enough that, well, you would hardly see it in the palm of your hand.
You've played with pinhole cameras in the past, right?
Yeah, I've done lots and lots of fun photography stuff. It's always been one of my sort of, on the side hobbies. Even in my early teens, I was helping my father in the darkroom with doing pictures for the catalog. So he was taking some of those pictures on 35 millimeter film, and we do all the black and white chemical developing in the darkroom. Later on, I ended up using my grandfather's camera, doing 4x5s and in black and white to use for catalog illustrations, and those were great because you can look at the back of this. You could look at the back of the camera, and your entire image shows up back here, just sort of like your digital camera today. You hold it out, and you can see the display, and you can see exactly what the image is going to be like. Well, this camera was the same way. You could see the image upside down, exactly like what you want to see through this ground glass. And I would shoot onto that 4x5 negative, and it was a 1-to-1 ratio. So if I needed a image in the catalog that was 2 inches by 3 inches, I can just measure it right there on the glass and take the image, and you can put that negative right down onto the paper, and you don't need an enlarger or anything. Boom, you get this exact image of what's going on. And of course, pinhole cameras and basically mini camera Obscuras, always had fun doing that sort of thing. Make your own pinholes, make your own boxes. I even have this special 9.5-inch wide film that they created for taking aerial photography, for like back when they would do plat maps or maps of areas for taxation purposes. So we got these giant rolls of film, and you cut those up in little pieces and put them inside of your pinhole camera. So lots of fun with optical toys.
Yeah, there are so many people in here that have experienced pinhole cameras and played with different. Actually, the chat's really, really cool today. It was a good topic.
Yeah, and we can get even today with our fun, fancy digital cameras, like even the ones we use for, we can get a lens cap that goes on and change the lens to a pinhole lens, and you get some really, really interesting photographs. And another one is like the pinhole camera you make with the oatmeal can. So the film is in a curved space, so you get this crazy sort of wide angle effect with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is the answer to a super chat that's up and coming, but the Canon drawing is 1778 drawing by Peter Verbruggen.
There you go.
Pronounced right.
Verbruggen.
And that takes us to some super chats. HJD sends in a super chat with no comment, and Heather says, "Could you add the artist of the Canon boring?" So there we go. Have a great weekend, she says. And there's one more in here. Right here, Diane. Camping next week with my trail life troop at Oconee, SP. Next Saturday, menu will be breakfast and buttered eggs. Sage sausage. Dinner will be Cheshire pie, baked onions, white pot. Ooh, John Norcus.
It's all good stuff.
Yeah. You're picking the good stuff.
Oh, yeah. Very good.
That catches us up on Super Chat.
Very good. Well, what do you think, guys? What's, you have anything in the chat? I'm just all out of just camera obscura.
These people with their pineapples. Somebody just commented, pineapple whole camera. So many pineapple jokes in this chat all the time.
Yeah, but they know. They know that at any time you could be replaced. So, I really I've got a. Is it Monday's video that is the Force video?
Yes.
Is that what's coming out on Monday?
Yes.
So make sure to check out Monday's video. That one is, I originally made it for Townsends Plus. I brought it in. I said, hey guys, what do you think about this? And they're like, no, John, we're gonna put it on we're gonna put it out on the main channel because it kind of needs to go there because it's sort of an answer to a lot of the, I don't know if it's kickback or concern. I'll say it's concern. About what we do on the channel and specifically with trees. So, we use the resources that people had in the 18th century. And their resources, from our perspective, are just so tiny. Especially if you go out into the frontier, and it's like, well, I've got dirt, I've got trees, I might have a river to work with. You don't have a lot to work with. And trees are this just unimaginable resource when you really dig into everything you can do. And if we go back to that boring machine, a lot of that machine is wood. We would never use wood today for a machine like that. We're looking for precision. We're looking for, something incredibly durable and, would last for however many years. And they're making these immense and complicated and, hard-working machines out of giant pieces of wood. And I really wanted to talk about, what we do on the channel with that and the resources that it takes and our stewardship of it. So make sure to check out Monday's video when it comes around.
Yep.
Yeah, we're really excited about that one. All right, it's probably time to sign off.
It has been a great Friday, and I want to thank everyone for coming in and rubbing shoulders here in the Nutmeg Tavern as always. Great to see you all and hear all the chat and all that going on. So always have fun and always come away excited at the end of Friday, going home kind of all pumped up. Probably drives my wife crazy. It's like, why is he coming home like this? It's Friday. It's time to relax and do whatever. And I'm all hyped up. And so you're part of what makes what we do on the channel at all possible whatsoever. The channel interacts with, blows my mind, millions of people. And it takes a certain amount of people to kind of be the engine behind that, the excitement behind that, sometimes the monetary support behind that. You guys are that. Thank you for coming along today. Thank you for your amazing support. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Aaron. Again, have a great weekend. Thanks for watching.